Black Friday is here, and you know what that means. We're finding the best value picks and tips for this game week in Game Week 13. Stick around. One of the most likely players that we're in this week is Bryan Mbeumo. He's been talked about a lot by a lot of people, and to be honest, I don't think if you're looking at him this game week, it's the kind of game week you want to bring him in. Arsenal have probably the best defence in the league, and realistically, you're probably going to be relying on him scoring a worldie or scoring a penalty. Looking at the fixtures that were after that, Luton is one that people were probably going to consider bringing him back in for, and he's already rose in price to 6.9 million. But after that, it's Brighton, Sheffield United, Villa. 3 of the next 5 games aren't the best, but he's still a bargain, especially when he's on penalties, and he's nailed on. Over the Christmas period, you're going to need players to play every game, and Bryan Mbeumo is that. He is their talisman. He takes all their set pieces and scores all their goals pretty much. Well, maybe a few of them random midfielders do as well. But yeah, I think at 6.9 million, he's one of the best value picks in the game, as I've said from the start of the season. Moving on now. We have Solanke. Solanke, 6.5 million. He's playing against Sheffield United away. He's one of the most likely scorers this week, and Bournemouth really need to score goals to stay up because the defence isn't great. After that, they got Villa, Crystal Palace, Man United, and Luton. Luton and Sheffield United in the next 5. That's a thing of beauty, pretty much. And that's if you have players with those in your next 5, you're going to be targeting them. Solanke as well. He's been performing okay this season. He's performed better than Bournemouth. Let's just say that. But Sheffield United is a game you really want to target, and 6.5 million. It's cheap for a forward that starts. And Solanke starts every single game. I can't reiterate over the next couple of weeks. The most important asset that a player is probably going to have is their availability. And Solanke plays every game close to 90 minutes. So he's a player that you're going to want to have. After that, it's Palmer. Palmer has been one of the best price players in the game this season, and he just keeps on going up in value. Personally, I don't really like his next 3 fixtures, but after that, Chelsea's fixtures turn to a sea of green. But in the next 5, you've got Everton and Sheffield United. I didn't think he'd be nailed on because of the fact he was new, he's youthful, but he's really taken on that role. His XGI is massive, but that's also because he's taken all the penalties. Chelsea have really lacked that in their attack. A player who's not afraid to step up and take a penalty. They've had players like Sterling, Enzo Fernandez, who've just taken penalties and missed them. Nicholas as well. Well, I don't think he'd be able to shoot a straight ball. But Palmer, apart from penalties, he's still playing well. He's one of the best players in the league, I believe. And at 5.2 million, an attacker on a Chelsea side, which know how to attack, is a really good value pick. I think he's there for the long haul, and he's pretty much a cheap 4th option or a 5th option if you want to really stack midfield. You could get him in instead of somebody like Cameron Archer, which I think is a better pick. Moving then on to the next player, it's William Saliba. As you notice, all these players have been quite cheap. They're under 7 million. Saliba is another one like that. The difference between Saliba and Gabriel is Gabriel's not nailed on. Zinchenko as well, he's a bit injury prone. And then as well as that, White seems to be getting a lot more little injuries lately as well. Saliba is the rock at the start of the defence. And looking at their fixtures, they got Brentford, Wolves, Luton, Aston Villa and Brighton. Brighton and Aston Villa aren't easy games, but Brighton, they're at home, and then Aston Villa is away. I think in the next 3 games, you're going to get a lot of points from defenders from Arsenal, especially somebody like William Saliba. He scored a goal, maybe even 2 this season as well, and his big old head is getting in the way of blocks and crosses. So Saliba is one of the best picks, and with the fixtures that they've got coming up, I think as well, it's nice to have a defensive option from Arsenal. After that, now, this is where it gets a bit sticky. When it comes to Jarrod Bowen, we don't know if he's going to play tomorrow. And with Jarrod Bowen being unsure if he's going to play, it's mainly because of the fact ex-West Ham United employee said that he wasn't too bad, so he might not be out too long, which means that he could play, but he didn't train yesterday. So who really knows? He could play, he could not play. It's Schrodinger's Bowen. So I'm just going to go with somebody else. I'm going to suggest that you bring in none other than Kudus. Kudus is playing against Burnley, Crystal Palace, Tottenham, Fulham and Wolves, and he's only 6.5 million. He could be playing as a striker because of the fact they've got so many injuries up front. And he's such a good player. He's like Nkunku off at Chelsea. He's just running in the channels and creating chances. He's just a really good player. And he's going to shine for West Ham. Him and Bowen are both great picks. But if you're looking for somebody who's probably more likely fit this game week, then go for Nkunku. He's also that little bit cheaper. After that, we've got somebody else who's a very Eche. Now, I might butcher his name, but he does have Luton, Bournemouth, and West Ham in his next three. If you're looking for somebody who's a short-term pick who's a little bit cheaper than the others, well, apart from Palmer, at 6.1 million, he's a great pick. The next three games, you'll pretty much be happy with him because he's got Luton next. Luton and Bournemouth are two really good fixtures, and as he's getting more and more forward, he's taking on a lot more free kicks as well. I think he's just a great player. He seems a little bit more of a differential than the other ones, but I think the thing is with him, it's a shorter term pick than the other ones, which I don't particularly like suggesting. Out of all of them, if budget was no option in terms of a midfielder and fitness was no issue, it would be Bowen. But I just think West Ham's fixtures out of the lot are the best. If I was picking one of them, it would have to be Kudus. That's just based off the fact that I think he's the fittest out of the lot. And Wemo seems to be the primary pick for a lot of people, but I don't think Arsenal is a good pick. I think long term Mbumo is a great pick, but I like having players that play this week, especially with the amount of injuries that a lot of people have. Next, I'm going to ask you one thing, and that's to subscribe to the channel. We're aiming for 3,000 subscribers for no particular reason, just for my own ego. So yeah, if you like to stroke my, just subscribe. Okay, like the video as well. Now I'm just going to talk to you about the games which are coming up. As you can see, this is from Tim Beyer. He's created this lovely ELO rating system for all the players over the next 5 game weeks. It makes it so easy to pick your transfers based on this. If you look at the teams that you want to target, it's teams like West Ham, Wolves, Burnley, Nottingham Forest and Fulham. A lot of the weaker teams have good fixtures coming up, while teams like Aston Villa are going to be players that you're going to be wanting to shift off. Do you have somebody like Matty Cash? If you're doubting that he's fit, it might be an idea to get rid of him. Same for somebody like Diaby, Luis Diaz. These are just options. And if you have Luton Town players, it might be an idea to get rid of them. Or Spurs. Spurs as well. Spurs have really bad fixtures. If you look at Villa next, Man City, West Ham, Newcastle, those next 4 games aren't easy by any stretch of the imagination. West Ham obviously aren't great away from home, but Spurs don't have great fixtures. It might be an idea to dump Son. If you have Maddison as well, and Udogie, it might be an idea to get rid of these players. Well, especially Maddison, considering he's out for a while. Looking at the top end of the table, Liverpool really, they should be higher, but they've got Man City next. After that, you can see they've got Fulham, Sheffield United, Crystal Palace, Man United. Those 4 games are all easy for them, aren't they? But then after that, Newcastle as well, their fixtures are turning more positive after the Chelsea game. Man City still don't have a great spell of fixtures, but after Tottenham, they've got Villa, Luton and Crystal Palace. There's going to be a lot of people who want their players, even though they do have the blank game week coming up as well. Next up, I'm going to talk to you about this week's top goal scorer data. Unsurprisingly to absolutely everybody, Haaland is still the most likely goal scorer this week. And then after that, it's Son and Joe Pedro for some reason. It's probably because Evan Ferguson's unfit. Julian Alvarez as well. It just shows the strength of Man City that 2 of their players are in the most likely scorers, even when they're playing Liverpool. After that, there's Calvert-Lewin against Man United, which is sort of depressing to say as a Man United fan, and Dominic Solanke. I think Solanke, as I've said before, is one of the better picks that you could bring in, especially if you're looking for a target man. Like somebody, let's say if you're trying to get rid of Ollie Watkins for whatever reason. He's a great transfer out. He gives you that a little bit more budget. Wilson as well is out injured, and Isaac may not be fully fit, so I'd probably swerve moving for players like that from Newcastle. Looking at the rest of it, Beto at Everton, I just think Man United aren't rated, which is great. Danny Ings as well, as I've said, I'd rather Kudus. And Awani is injured. A lot of people have considered bringing in Chris Wood. I'm not sure of his minutes. I'm not sure I'd do it. But at 4.9 million, it's hard to argue against. Looking at the rest of them, Gabriel Jesus is there for whatever reason as well. I don't know either. So moving away from score data, we're going to be talking to you next about the clean sheet percentages. This week, not a great week for clean sheets. It's not been a great season for it either. There's been fewer clean sheets after this stretch of play in the year than previous seasons, and it's looking like this week there's going to be very few and far between, which generally means there'll be more than you expect. Out of the teams this week, there is no side with over a 40% chance of a clean sheet, which is nuts. By the way, this comes from Fantasy Football Hub, and cheers to that. Arsenal, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Man City are the only teams that have over a 32% chance of keeping a clean sheet, which is crazy when you think about it. Luton as well, when you're looking at that fixture, Luton are quite good at home. And then Brentford against Arsenal. Brentford, I know they didn't score against Liverpool, but you'd almost back them to score most games. Fulham as well, they're against Wolves, who still don't have Neto. I just don't back Fulham to keep a clean sheet ever. So looking at that, there's not really a lot of interesting targets to have here. If you have a fully fit squad, you're probably be going a 3 at the back unless you like your fullback to get forward. Like if you have a Simicast, you're not going to start him away against Man City. I just think there's a lot of bad options there. Next up, we're going to talk to you quickly about captaincy. And these are all the players that you can expect to get the most points. If you're going by expected points, the best captaincy option this week is Haaland, then Son, then Salah, then Saka, then Alvarez, and you can read the rest. But anyway, I'm going to keep this nice and short and sweet. I don't actually know how long this video is because it's just been recorded one and done. The mic is still not here. Okay, Black Friday is here. So as I've given you some options for Black Friday, maybe I'll purchase a new microphone for Black Friday. Who knows? Maybe I will. Anyway, I've been Paddy. I'm going to have a lovely weekend, and I hope you do too.